Hello everyone, this is Chris Tiongson, Peds Department Chair, and welcome to our first virtual faculty meeting, Back to School Edition, Fall 2017. First of all, I want to thank all of our faculty. We couldn't do what we do without you, so thanks for being great teachers, great role models, and showing our students the joys of working in pediatrics. Special thanks to our award-winning faculty, including those recognized at this past year's graduation. AOA honors go to Stephanie Hansen and Brenda Thurlow. The Dean's Special Recognition Award to Jake Fish. And your chair was fortunate enough also to receive an award. The Pediatric Department also has a couple of awards, one for Best Pediatric Grand Rounds Presentation of the Year, and that went to Sarah Lean for her talk about millennials and intergenerational teaching, and the Mark Blaufus Golden Tomato Fargo Pediatric Teacher of the Year. First time there were co-winners, and it was Amanda Johnson, nurse practitioner on the Peds Hospitalist team, and Melanie Chihak, who worked as a Peds Hospitalist and is now full-time as Peds Hemonc. Also wanted to let you know about the class of 2017 graduates entering pediatrics. Rebecca Asp at the University of Washington in Seattle, Colette Chorney at UW-Madison, Kelsey Gladen doing pediatric anesthesia at Hopkins, Kimberly Hooshagen at Hershey, Penn State, and Hasi Samaraware doing a combined health services master in pediatrics at University of Chicago. Thanks to you all for your teaching and your mentoring. And speaking of mentoring, if there are third-year medical students that you're working with who are interested in career in pediatrics, as they prepare for fourth year, I'd encourage them to take the pediatric acting internship on the Peds Hospitalist service at Sanford Children's in Fargo. There are also a couple of new electives, White Earth Pediatrics with Dr. Schreiner at the White Earth IHS Clinic, all outpatient, and then a combination Peds subspecialty elective where you can mix and match 2 weeks of various specialties in Fargo. Turning now to clerkship updates for this coming academic year. First place to start is the Pediatric Department website at med.und.edu/pediatrics. That's going to be the place where you find the links to all of these various items, including the updated faculty handbook, which includes the medical student objectives, the curriculum, competencies for undergrad medical education, and policies, including one to highlight for this year, the teacher-learner relationships for all faculty and students, the clerkship requirements, and the grade submission protocol. So just to walk you through how to find that on the website, there's our main site, and the red box and the big red arrow are pointing you in the right direction to find all the links that we mentioned previously. Every year we look at the criteria for honors in order to meet our goal of approximately 20% of our students getting honors. This past year we're up a little bit more than that, around 30%, so we've had to make some adjustments. Each campus has a specific score threshold, so that helps to control for the variation in grading between campuses. 50% of the preceptor score, that part did not change. You cannot lose any of your professionalism points, which include completing your clip cases, your write-ups, oral presentations, and doing all that on time for 20%. The shelf exam threshold did go up a little bit to try to get us closer to that 20% of honors. Another thing I wanted to update you all on is the required encounters as part of the clerkship, and for our purposes, only encounters in which the student actively participates should count. They should not be including just full-time shadowing. What we need to do is get 5 well child visits, 5 newborn exams, and 10 acute illness, which can either be inpatient or outpatient. If for some reason students are not on track to meet those numbers at their mid-clerkship review, the clerkship site directors will make adjustments to the schedule to make sure that they get there. A frequently asked question about the evaluation forms that we use is the difference between formative comments and summative comments. So formative comments are not included in the Dean's letter. They're intended to list strengths and weaknesses to aid the student's personal formation or development, not for grading of performance. Whereas summative comments are potentially included in the Dean's letter and are intended to summarize performance, that is, to assign a grade. Preceptors also ask about what are some tips that I can incorporate into my teaching, especially with my schedule being so busy, and we'll talk briefly and introduce these 3 different topics. The links are included if you want to dive into them deeper, but 1-minute preceptor, snaps, and asking higher level questions. 1-minute preceptor is a great tool when you're busy because it should only take 1 minute. It works both in the clinic and in the hospital. Student would go in to see a patient, come back out, And you would ask them, number one, get a commitment as to what they think is going on. Number two, probe them for supporting evidence. So why do they think that? Go in and see the patient and then proceed with reinforcing what they did well, give some guidance about errors or admissions, things, maybe a question that you would have asked or a physical exam finding that you noticed that they didn't, and then use that opportunity to teach a general principle. Again, this should only take 1 minute. The next tool, Snaps, does include more of a typical presentation by the student. Again, they would see the patient summarize briefly the history and the findings. Then they would narrow the differential down to a couple of 2 or 3 relevant possibilities and analyze the differential, supporting one over another. At which point, then the student would probe the preceptor, asking questions about things they're not sure of, and then make a management plan for the medical issues. And then at the very end, select a case-related issue for self-directed learning by the student. This takes some of the pressure off and allows the students to be responsible for their own learning issues and be able to look that up at a different time and then come back and potentially discuss it later. The last teaching tip for busy preceptors is asking higher level questions. Perhaps we don't have to ask as many questions if we ask fewer but more challenging questions. So the idea would be to move from remembering, understanding, and applying up to higher levels like analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So examples of that would be, how would the story change if the diagnosis was X instead? So instead of being pharyngitis, it turns out that it's a lymphoma. How would the story change? What could go wrong in the next few hours or days, and how would we recognize it? Especially good at checkout time. And then how are 2 different diagnoses similar and how are they different? For example, how are bronchiolitis and asthma similar and how are they different? What are the weaknesses and strengths of a particular practice parameter or protocol? And could you justify our course of action using a review of the literature? Thank you for being part of our pediatric faculty virtual meeting, flipped classroom style. And please let us know your feedback on this. If you have any questions, either about the clerkship or about our students or things you'd like to hear about in the future, please let us know. All of our contact information and email addresses are listed above. Thanks again.